Welcome to the Horror Hangout, a podcast where film fans watch the best and worst and sometimes the shortest horror movies of all time and have a lovely chat about them. I have a bonus episode for you today, and I am joined by a very special guest, Rich Rose. Rich, how you doing?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I am very well, thank you. And everyone listening, how are you? But you cannot answer, but we do care.
Okay.
What? Let's give a little bit of context to why exactly you are here, Rich. So you are the writer and director and producer, if I'm reading all of your credits correctly. Don't let
Hopefully.
me rob you
Yeah.
of any. Of It's Really You, one of our favorite short films that we saw at FrightFest this year. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm great, and I'm delighted that you enjoyed the film. Yeah, it
I
was lovely to get a little shout out from you guys.
I enjoyed it very much, and I think I said in the video when we spoke about it, horror and comedy they sit so nicely
Mm.
together. Um, I'm going to say both very difficult to do well, I think as well, and I think you really nailed it
Oh,
with It's
cheers.
Really You. For anyone who hasn't had the chance to check out the synopsis or anything, can you give us a quick description of the movie before we get into the making of it?
Yeah, so it is about a priest who arrives at a house to perform an exorcism, only to discover that the demon who is inside this woman is a demon that he has encountered many times over the years. She was the first demon that he kind of exiled from a person several decades earlier, and throughout the years she keeps coming back, keeps possessing people in order to see him because she has built up a kind of almost romantic connection with him. So it's essentially kind of a love story, or more specifically, a breakup story between an exorcist and a demon.
Yeah, I loved it. Like so surprising, and I think especially when it's within a short film showcase as well. Really, really wonderful to see the variety that you see from one film to the next and the tonal shifts you get. It fell really nicely, I think, in the setup of, is it like 10, 12 movies that we had all in a
Yeah, it was
row?
like 12 that day, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and we saw you all. There were creators from lots of the films all lined up down the front to give a
That was
little
fun.
little shout out about it as well.
Standing
You
in
got your
front of that massive screen in the Odeon in Leicester Square was, yeah, it was pretty cool, I have to say. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, before we get into the making of It's Really You, tell me a little bit about your where you well, maybe let's begin where you started as a horror fan. What attracted you to the genre as a viewer and then later as a creator?
Uh I think I always had kind of a timid interest in horror. Like as a kid, I remember kind of going to Blockbuster in the 90s and
Hmm.
always being drawn to the horror section, even though, obviously my parents would never let me rent any of these films. But I remember these kind of very lurid front covers, Evil Dead and Nightmare on Elm Street and that kind of thing. And just being kind of cautiously curious, wanting to know what was in these films that I wasn't allowed to watch. And then I suppose it wasn't until I was sort of 13 or so when I really, would kind of go with my friends into town and kind of we'd pop into HMV, and if you were lucky, you'd get the person behind the counter who didn't care if he sold an 18
Hmm.
certificate film to a teenager. I mean, there were plenty who would turn you down and go, "No, you can't buy Candyman," and I just have to begrudgingly put it back. But yeah,
You're in your school uniform, mate. What are you talking about? You're
well,
definitely not old
yeah.
enough. Yeah.
I'd remove the tie, so it was, the perfect disguise. I'm a businessman, just simply buying Hostel Part Two.
Oh, I tell you what, such a stressful day at the office. I'm really looking forward to sitting down to watch Saw 3 this
Yeah,
evening.
exactly. It was that. But, the odd person either fell for it or didn't care about their job enough. So, yeah, I managed to accrue like a little kind of DVD collection of, I suppose mainly, I mean, yeah, sort of mainly 80s horror. And I think that's still kind of what I love the most,
My
kind
golden era.
yeah, prosthetics and gunge and animatronics and I kind of love special effects and particularly kind of practical effects and but I do remember as well kind of being a kid and or a teenager and certain films were too much for me. I remember I got the first Evil Dead, which I have a huge poster of on my wall there, if you can see that.
Very nice.
That's gone with me everywhere since the age of about 15, every property I've lived in. But I remember getting that on DVD again when I was about 13, and about sort of half an hour in, having to watch it from the doorway of the living room, kind of peering around it because it was just, even though you know, a lot of it, even at that time, looked kind of dated, a bit hokey, it really unnerved me. Something about that film really kind of got to me, and I think I had to turn it off. So and then didn't watch it subsequently until about 16. And then it's, you know, it was one of my favorite films. I love it. Now it's like my rainy day Sunday film. But yeah, I don't know. Horror is always, I think part of the appeal of horror is that you can kind of do so much with it. You know, a sort of crappy, you know, sort of cheapy, gratuitous horror film is great fun, but then on the other end of the spectrum, you know, you can have kind of more art housey fare, you know, like The Shining or sort of A24 kind of stuff, you know, which will be kind of thematically rich and, you know, very sort of carefully shot. And yeah, I just like that it kind of runs the gamut from complete trash to kind of, yeah, more artful.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, even from the written side of horror, right? You can have something which effectively means nothing. It's like this is just silly fun, and I'm going to kill some people, and
Yeah,
it will
yeah,
be in creative ways. Or you can be, society. Well, I'm holding up a mirror to this, and I'm
yeah,
going to
yeah,
be
yeah.
taking it down if you don't
How do
mind.
you
Thank you
like
very
that?
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and such a great, I think horror particularly is like genre cinema.
Mm.
It can be so subversive, and it can really look at some of the issues that maybe you don't even get from other genres because it can be extreme,
Yeah.
and in some ways it is meant to be, in some cases, or it is meant to be quite uncomfortable and quite unpleasant. We talked about it when we reviewed absolute classic Frankenhooker, like
Which
a
I have yet
film.
to see.
Oh, you
Someone was telling me to watch that recently, so I think I should seek it out.
you absolutely must, for a film called Frankenhooker, which is about a man reconstructing his girlfriend with parts of sex workers. It has a lot to say about how we label victims
Yeah,
of drug culture and abusive systems of society as actually the morally in the wrong. And a lot of talk about female autonomy, more business than a film called Frankenhooker
yeah. Do
has
you think
any.
filmmakers intended that, or they were surprised when they'd made a sort of feminist masterpiece
um
at the
I suspect there's some good strong, at least on the social side. I think Frank Hellenlotter had an angle of those things. You would not expect it. And when I went to start watching it, I only saw it for the first time myself, I think early this year.
end?
Um, I was so surprised at some of the depth that is in a film called Frankenhooker. Yeah,
Yeah.
let alone the fact that it is an absolute delight.
Because I would have thought that they came up with the title first and worked backwards, but you're making it sound as though the title was almost a, oh, well, we're going to have to appeal to a certain crowd, so we made this incredibly rich, interesting film, but we need to sell it.
Yeah, and we're gonna teach people about this. I think Hellenlotter is maybe the Hemingway of his day.
Oh, fucking A, I need to watch that. Okay.
Yeah, straight away.
Yeah.
Um, So then, when did you transition into wanting to make films? When did that creative bug? Was it from a writing side, or did you pick up a camera? Where did you start thinking about actually telling stories?
Well, I mean, I think like a lot of, oh, I don't know about a lot, but you know, like a fair few kind of little nerdy children. I got a camcorder when I was a kid and used to kind of make claymations, and they would got kind of increasingly bloody and that sort of thing. And then I during my 20s, I kind of did stand-up comedy mainly, but I always kept kind of writing scripts and that kind of thing, you know, with, you know, a hope to filming something one day, but I kind of couldn't see a way to do it necessarily. And then over lockdown, you know, kind of had that moment where you kind of end up rethinking a lot of what you've been doing up until that point in your life, and I ended up shooting, sort of directing a few kind of slightly off kilter, kind of narrative driven music videos for a couple of friends who were in bands, and I thought, oh, this is actually far more what I want to be doing. And then I shot a very kind of cheap horror film with a friend of mine. I mean, that was literally made for about 50 quid and looked like crap, but it was a, you know, a big kind of learning curve. And then yeah, sort of coming out of lockdown, I had a bit of money in savings, and I was like, I think I need, I'm in my 30s now. I think I want to kind of rethink what I've been doing. So I ended up doing an MA in directing, and then the It's Really You was basically my dissertation film for that master's course. But I never really treated it as a dissertation film. Excuse me, I was always kind of treating it as something that I could take to festivals and try and gain some traction on. So yeah, that was kind of the journey, if you
Oh
will.
yeah, and great, and like I love the opening that you spent some time in comedy as well, and it's great to see that you kept that in the tone of your horror movie as well. I think one thing that I really took away from the film was not just saying it because you're here, Rich. I found the dialogue incredibly sharp, very genuine.
Oh,
Like it really sold that story, and difficult for any actor, I imagine, to pretend to be both themselves and a
mm,
and a demonic entity that's inside
yeah,
them.
no,
Um,
sure.
you really got the characters there and the emotion between them. And for a short film as well, like what is the this isn't a test. I won't be checking you for the second, but I mean, what is the runtime of the movie in total?
I think it's about just shy of 15 minutes. It's about sort of 14 minutes, 30 seconds, thereabouts. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even do the maths of what percentage of a Schneider cut that is, but yet you get more, the depth of character in just that 15 minutes is phenomenally delivered. You get all this backstory that we managed to convey and not in like a very heavily exposition kind of way. It is just naturally from the conversations they have. You can pull up so much context from this rich history they have together.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad you yeah, felt that.
And when it comes to the production of the film, how was it? After doing all of the theory and spending all the time doing your MA, how did it feel to be, from script to behind camera, working with your actors on the set, the experience of filming it? How did you find it?
Uh, Very exciting. I think there are certain things that I would have done differently, knowing kind of what I know now. I think I kind of let certain uh, scenes play, because it is essentially almost exclusively one scene between
Mhm.
two people talking in a bedroom. And I think a bit unreasonably, though I didn't realize it at the time, I kind of exhausted the actors a little bit by letting that whole scene play out from certain camera angles, in full, basically a few times. So they were essentially having to do, 10, 12 minutes of dialogue non-stop several times, which, yeah, I wouldn't do again. It didn't occur to me the toll that might sort of take on your actors. But yeah, no, it was great fun. And I think I was really fortunate getting the cast that I did because I think they did elevate it massively. So the priest is played by Richard Hugh, who is my wife's dad.
Wow.
He's a professional actor. He's been in a bunch of stuff. He's been in like Line of Duty and Succession and The Diplomat. But so I was very lucky to have a proper actor who was prepared to do it, just by keeping it in the family, basically. And then Joe, who played the husband, Joe Adelaken, is someone that I just met at a festival through a music festival a few years ago through a friend, and I knew he was an actor and he kind of worked in the RSC and that kind of thing. So I messaged him and he was up for doing it, and then he knew Amanita Francis, who plays the possessed woman, and he suggested her. So the kind of casting of it, I got really lucky with. There were three fantastic actors, and it all kind of fell together very seamlessly and easily. So I got really lucky with that, and I think that made the whole filming process a lot easier, to be honest, when you're working with people who know what the hell they're doing, really.
Yeah, right. And also, like, nice people to work with will take
Yeah.
you a long way when things are hard and difficult, and when you're tired, and when you need to do things one more time. And you're a harsh critic of yourself, I'm sure. Thankfully, only recording a film that ran 15 minutes, so they ain't going to say bad as Kubrick. This guy already. How many takes?
Yeah, I was horrible. I was insufferable on set, I'm sure. They're all broken like Shelley Duvall at the end,
Yeah,
but I had fun.
you like Hitchcock bursting in on them to try and frighten them all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Keep them on edge. Treat them
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah, I've learned from the absolute best and
yeah,
notable
yeah, yeah.
pieces of shit in the industry.
I've
Yeah.
learned from all the most problematic directors. Yeah,
It's
Woody
okay.
Allen, Polanski. Yeah,
So, I mean, learning those lessons from them, and then obviously having the finished product, FrightFest this
Yeah.
year, like Leicester Square in London, enormous screen. How did it feel seeing it with an audience like that? And have you screened it anywhere else? Was that the first run?
That's the fifth festival that it had played in, but I hadn't been able to attend the others because they were, I think all of them were in the States actually. Oh no, there was one in the UK, but it was too far away and I couldn't make it. So that was the first, I mean, I'd seen it in a cinema with kind of, cast and crew showing, but that was, nearly a year ago now. Um, so yeah, seeing it in that environment was very cool. I think that I don't know if you picked up on this, and again, I'm probably being my own worst critic, but something happened with our DCP, and it was quite a bit louder our film than all the others. And there had been certain kind of sound issues that we'd sort of smoothed out, but maybe I was being hypercritical. I could kind of hear the odd crackle and hiss in the audio, so I was kind of sitting there going, "Oh no!" for the first 3 minutes. Then once I relaxed into it and realized people were enjoying it, that was less of a concern. It might have just been the kind of the nerves and the adrenaline making me sort of jangling me like that. But no, it was an amazing experience. Yeah.
I'm happy to confirm, as the foremost detective of my generation, I did not find any
Oh,
any sound
fantastic. I
crackles
will
or anything
ignore
like that.
it.
I certainly wasn't like, the balance. It's not like when the adverts come on ITV and it absolutely makes you brick it every single time, biggest jump
Yeah.
scare every time the adverts come on. But no, it was
Yeah.
yeah, I think it all balanced out very nicely. And like you, I think the audience really took to it well. Like it must be nice in like a social watching environment, like a screening or a cinema to say, oh my goodness, you're laughing at the right time. And I expected that to be funny, and
Yeah.
you've
That was
responded how
nice.
you like.
Well, yeah, because I mean the I sort of saw the film as, it's kind of primarily, a kind of character driven, it's essentially, as I said, like a breakup story disguised as a horror film, more or less. So the tone of it is kind of quite melancholy and downbeat for the most part, but there are certainly intentional laughs in there. And a kind of initial concern of mine was that because the tone of it is I don't want to say solemn, but yeah, kind of quite melancholy. I was afraid that the laughs wouldn't land when they are there. But every time I've seen it with, well, twice when I've seen it with a group of people, they have laughed at the right point. So that has been really gratifying. Because I think also, even though it is, I hope it has a kind of dramatic weight, but it is also fundamentally quite a silly idea, an exorcist falling in love with a demon. And I think you kind of need those moments of like relief and self-awareness, to puncture the kind of more serious side of it.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
the laughs were there.
this is what I want next time they try and revive the Exorcist movies after Believer last year, which been on record.
I have yet to see, but
I didn't
it
take
sounds
to.
bloody awful.
Yeah, I mean the good thing I said this in the episode when we covered it. The challenge with resurrecting something like The Exorcist is that you come with a lot of baggage and a
Yeah.
lot of expectation. And sometimes you're setting, yes, I know a known IP will potentially get people in the door to begin with, but at the same time, you're setting those expectations really high. And particularly with a story with biblical characters and demons and so on, those fuckers are all public domain.
Well,
So
yeah, yeah,
you could use them in a very different way and
yeah.
maybe do something a little bit more original to it. And my challenge with Exorcist Believer was that I feel they felt compelled by the power of Christ, maybe,
Yep.
to hit certain beats and little bits of fan service so someone would go, ah, yes, an Exorcist movie.
But
Um,
anytime you see a kind of, legacy sequel or whatever we're meant to call them, and some of them are actually pretty decent, and then there are those moments of sort of lip service to the fans, and it fucking takes you out of it every time. I saw Romulus recently, Alien Romulus, and I thought it was a good time. It was a ride, but the few moments where it goes, remember this from the better films, and you go, for Christ's sakes, why did you shove that in there?
I
Because
could be watching that.
exactly, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think I will watch Exorcist Believer at some point because I am curious, but with the best will in the world, I don't think David Gordon Green is any William Friedkin,
Yeah,
so
it's
I'm not holding out a lot of hope.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, like I say, there are elements of it that are great, but unfortunately, we do not get this kind of relationship and the breakup between, Pazuzu. He's probably been thinking about that priest that he chucked down the stairs for years now.
Interesting angle, wouldn't it? I mean, why not do something completely different with it? If you've got that IP, go nuts. And I think isn't Mike Flanagan supposedly doing
I
the
think
next?
Mike Flanagan is next in
That's
line to do
really
something.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Hold
mean, if
up.
Mike Flanagan excels at anything, I think having a one-on-one sort of conversation between possessed person and a priest that's managing an exorcism. I mean,
That could be great
yeah,
because
get
he's a
get
fantastic writer.
get on board with it, Rich. Maybe you can inject some of
I can
some of
get in
your
touch
style.
with him.
Yeah, get in touch, Mike, if you're listening.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Please do. You can't DM people on Letterboxd, so I can't get him that way. But I'll find a way to track him
Yeah,
down.
yeah, we'll get him there.
Yeah.
So you've done it. You were at Fright Fest. Did you manage to just attend your screening, or did you catch anything else while you were there as a film fan?
No, unfortunately, could only attend that screening. I mean, when I found out that it got into Fright Fest, I was immediately kind of looking for tickets to the entire event, but it had all sold out. So I'm
They
thinking,
go very quickly.
yeah, I think I might just get kind of early bird tickets next year and try and do the whole thing. But even that one screening was, great fun. Talked to some other filmmakers. Met one of the Cenobites from Hellraiser in the pub. I got very
Oh,
excited.
Nick
Yeah, the
Vince.
Chatterer. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Ben has done an interview with him. He is not like a Cenobite at all. Perhaps the loveliest man you might ever meet, right?
Oh, sweet. Yeah, yeah. I can't remember what happened exactly, but I overheard someone going, "Oh, well, yeah, yeah, and this is Nick, who's in Hellraiser." And I did an immediate double take, and then I saw him standing there wearing a t-shirt covered in photos of his own face, and the Chatterer and that demon from Nightbreed that I think he played, and I had to run over and go, "Sorry, were you the Chatterer?"
Yes,
And
I
very
was.
kindly got a photo with me. So yeah, that
Yeah,
was.
yeah. Nick is such a lovely man. Anyone listening, go back, listen to Ben's interview with Nick, and we'll segue into a tiny bit of horror news. I believe I Am Monsters, the documentary, sort of documentary with elements of entertainment in it as well, that Nick filmed. I believe Dark Rift Film have just started taking pre-orders for the Blu-ray release of it. It's about to get a physical release.
Have you seen it?
I didn't catch it. Ben did at the festival. That was one of the times we had to split the party to
Right.
optimize our coverage. So probably right to pick it up myself. But Ben had a lot of good things to say about it, so I might have to catch up with it because Nick's had such a long and storied career playing monsters, and you know, completely contrary to everything I've
Lovely
seen of
man he
meeting him.
is. Yeah.
He's not dragged anyone to hell, as far as I'm aware of. So yeah, we've covered Fright Fest, we've covered the past. Now, of course, our eyes must turn to the future. I mean, with the experience of doing this, Rich, what is next for you? Where are you gonna take your filmmaking next? Any ideas yet?
So I've just, as of kind of the last fortnight, started kind of tentatively, entering into pre-production on a new short. The aim would be to kind of shoot that before the end of this year. I don't know whether or not that'll be possible. I'm trying to kind of lock in crew and that kind of thing now. But yeah, it's quite a fun script. I think it's again, it's a horror, but it's much more obviously horror than it's really you. Which, as I said, was kind of, a sort of horror adjacent character drama. This is much kind of gnarlier, more fucked up. And I think it's
Great, we're
fun.
here for it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's again kind of a black comedy. But yeah, yeah, I think it'll be good. I think it'll be fun. And again, my father-in-law will hopefully be in this one
He's
because
back.
yeah, yeah, why wouldn't I keep getting him? And I can't definitely say if this is the case yet, but hopefully my wife's mum, who is also a brilliant actor, will be in this one. So I'm keeping it very much in the family, and cutting costs wherever I can.
Well, this is how you get a Godzilla -1, right? You
Yeah.
are careful with your budget. You use the resources that you have, and to be honest, I think it makes for nicer and more exciting film stories, right? The fact that you've met these people, that then it all came together. Like this is This is that movie making magic, I think. Like, who wants a story that's like, yeah, I put out a casting call, we interviewed some people. These were the best choices.
And that's not a story, is it?
No, boring, get out.
The story was at least a 2 minute anecdote.
Exactly. That's what you need. This you'll dine out on this forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and also, talk about the hard work. Your in-laws have to have a certain degree of patience with you
Oh,
if they're
God.
gonna see you for Sunday dinner anyway.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, I'm really milking that in-law connection. There'll come a day when they go, no, we won't be in your shit anymore. But until then, we.
You know how my job is, as well as making this film, to make your daughter happy every day of our lives together. Just think about that when you refuse to do one more take for me, if you
Yeah,
could.
that's it. I'll hold that over them. I love that.
Yeah. If you want me to bother doing cauliflower cheese when you come round this Sunday, you better put me a bit more feeling into this one.
Yeah, yeah.
Other,
Do it again with some emotion, for
yeah.
God's sake.
Otherwise, you're only getting the Yorkshire pudding that doesn't rise.
Yeah,
Like nothing.
yeah. That's essentially my home life. It's a bleak affair, but I'm getting great actors, so it's all good.
Grand. So, we are in October, the spookiest time of year. There are lots of people doing a 31 days of Halloween challenge and trying to watch a film every day of the month. People getting together, watching horror movies. So I'm going to put the hardball questions are coming now, Rich. I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Yep.
Someone's coming around to you for a Halloween get together. They're bringing the snacks. They're gonna put a film on. You're gonna get together with, let's say, a mixed group of friends. So not all horror hardcores, but you're gonna come round. All you need to do, my friend, is pick the film. What are you putting on?
I think I would go for something that not everyone has seen, and you'd want it to be fun, ideally. So not, I wouldn't go for anything kind of too heavy. Uh, I've got two choices, I think,
Go
two
on.
movies that I love. I would go for either John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness, which I think is colossally underrated. Great Lovecraftian, it's got Sam Neill. And I don't see enough love for that film. I watch that about once a year and I love it. The other one I would go for would be Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2,
Oh wow.
which again is complete trash. I'm not convinced it's a good film, but for whatever reason, I love it. You've got Dennis Hopper running around with a chainsaw. You've got, well, actually, that's kind of the main thing you've got, but it's just it's a really idiotic, goofy, nasty little film, and I thoroughly enjoy it. So I'd go for one of those two,
Well,
and
you can have a double bill of people coming round and you're starting early. That's
yeah,
fine.
there we go. So that would
Exactly.
kind of fix, yeah.
Yeah. Nice pairing. Which one would you start with in that situation?
You'd probably start with the better film, which I think is In the Mouth of Madness, and then when everyone's a bit pissed,
Yeah,
you wait
get a
until
couple of drinks down. They've already had their pizza. They can get up and get a little pick at one of the crusts that they've left
yeah,
if
exactly.
they need
Yeah,
to
yeah,
stand up during Texas Chainsaw.
yeah. What would you go for? What would you be your Halloween?
Oh, well now I've pulled it once. Genuinely, Frankenhooker is such a
Really?
delight. Yeah, I would put that on any time. And then you mentioned it. You want something fun, and I think if you're going for, I mean, it's fairly well known in horror circles. I think I would maybe pair it with something like a Brain Dead to finish with.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I rewatched Bad Taste the other day.
Bad
Uh,
Taste is so good.
that stands up wonderfully.
Yeah.
It's still my favorite Peter Jackson film. You can keep your King Kong, you can keep your Lovely Bones. It's Bad Taste.
Yeah, Bad Taste. I've not watched Bad Taste for years. I need to go back and give it a revisit. I'm a big fan as well, depending, I mean, maybe not for a generalist audience, but if you're putting on a something for a horror audience in particular, but you really want to shock some of those unless they are well versed in it as well.
Mm.
Um, I went to Starburst Film Festival in Manchester a couple of years ago, and I watched, and it's a nice small event, but mostly people who watch horror films. Some of our friends came along with us, and they sat down to watch what was their first trauma movie,
Oh, okay.
and we watched with Lloyd Kaufman in the room. We watched Return to Nukem High Part 2. I have
What's
never
that?
seen shock on faces quite so much as that. And so I think there's a great joy
Yeah,
to bringing a trauma film to the table, I would probably myself go for maybe a Poultrygeist, something
I
like that as
I
well.
actually haven't seen very many Troma films. I've seen The Toxic Avenger. I don't know entirely what I thought of it, but it made an impact. I is Street Trash Troma. I feel like that would be
I'd have to go
maybe
look. I would imagine it is. I would imagine it is. I've just started a trauma back catalogue
right.
watch. Yeah, like it's a very special type of filmmaking, almost very, very provocative. Even more so in a time when we are more sensitive and more aware of what can be offensive. Um, but it is handled in such a way where it is by being so overtly over the top. It almost goes in a bit like a so bad it's good way. It becomes so offensive in some areas that it's become fine again because there is no way that you genuinely mean any of this stuff because you
Yeah,
are so over the top in how
yeah.
you are presenting it. You get a lot of fun out of these, and so many wonderful, like excellent horror directors have come out of that space,
Mm.
and have done some great things where they can really do some off the chain kind of work as well. That it's a kind of a magical studio.
Oh well, if you've got like a public list anywhere that's viewable of like Troma films that are worth watching, I will.
Oh, I will get start on publishing that because also there is some stuff because they publish lots of very, very strange and some very low budget stuff. There are some things that we like, what are you pitching at me? My last one I did watch was, and it does have merit, it's not going to hit my top list, but I recently watched what is it? Nymphoid Barbarian in Dinosaur Hell.
Oh, that's a top.
Um that's a title. Um I love the Power Rangers style costume working in that one and the lovely rotoscoped action figures in the background to be
Oh,
big,
right. And
like 1930s style dinosaurs.
this didn't even make your top 10. This sounds
No,
wonderful.
not yet. This, when something like that is just an also ran, you can imagine some
Yeah.
of the heights this studio is putting out.
Man, I've been missing out. Okay, yeah, I'll have to really watch some Troma this Halloween, I think. That's my next stop.
Dive in. So, Richard, my last question for you, a very important one. So, we'll call it a double header. So, if people really have been inspired by this and they want to catch up with It's Really You in the future, where can they follow news on its wider release? Where can they keep an eye out for knowing when they can watch it?
I mean, I'm useless to be honest at social media, and it's probably something I need to get better at. I am on Instagram, so I've kind of been publishing updates there, at Rich Rose Art. And then so it's playing a festival, Spooky Empire in I think Miami in about a week. That's the next festival it's doing. Oh, and actually, my father-in-law has been nominated for Best Actor there.
There he
So
is.
yeah, touch wood, he wins that. And then I don't think it's got any other festivals at the moment, but it's kind of in consideration with quite a few. And then I suppose next year I'll kind of, early next year would be when I would kind of make it public in some capacity. I don't know if I'll put it up on my own YouTube channel or, try and get it up in a bigger one would be kind of the ideal thing. But yeah, and it's on Letterboxd,
It
as I
is. You
mentioned
can
before.
rate it and we can review it on there if you do manage to catch it at a festival or elsewhere.
Yeah, that would be nice if you've got something nice to say. If you thought it was terrible, don't bother.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Positive vibes only.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's kind of it at the moment. Yeah, just trying to keep people watching and enjoying it.
And the same, I guess, your Instagram is also the place as news becomes available of your upcoming projects as well. If they catch up with you there, then to be fair, more followers gives you more of a reason to do more of it, right? Like,
But because at the moment I'm hovering around a paltry 300 and something, and it barely feels worth it. But I know that part of the game, you have to keep doing it.
yeah, I
So
mean,
they
let's
will
let's
post every month.
let's get Rich to like 10K or so, and then we can get proper behind the scenes shots, all this stuff once he's got a big enough
That's too much
audience.
pressure. I don't want that. No, a comfortable 500, and I'll be,
Nice and comfy.
yeah. Let's not go crazy. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for spending a bit of time with me today, Rich. We will I mean, happy Halloween in advance. I think it's not too early to say it, is it?
What is it now? Oh, it's the 2nd of October. It's pretty early, but nah, it's the month, isn't it? It's fine.
I mean, the decorations have been up since September. Now the supermarkets are. Come on, Struth.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah. So, yeah. Happy Halloween, Rich. Have a lovely time hanging out. Enjoy Frankenhooker when you get round to watching it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us. We've said this before privately, but I'll say it on video. Come and join us for a full episode soon. We'll pick a movie that you
Oh, that'll be
love that we
great.
haven't covered in 350 odd episodes, and we will have a full chat with the whole team.
That would be great fun. I'd love to do that. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, cheers for having me today, man. It's been
Well,
yeah, lovely.
see you there. Good luck with the next one.
Cool.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye for now.
Bye.